because...
Bro, I refactor my hard drive sometimes for fun, just for funniness. You know, I think it's hilarious when, like, my entire computer is dead, and then it's back. Because why not?
I don't really accept things like... I don't think, like, things like fun or happiness are real.
Oh, no, they absolutely are. It's just the way that you process the dopamine that you created, and various other, like, happy hormones and whatnot that you have in your brain. Those are definitely very real things. Chemically,
I think it's a temporary thing. It's not...
Yeah,
it's
that's
not
how these things should work.
It's not something that's real. It's like a temporary mental model.
Yeah, but like literally everything is. But the problem is, what you don't understand is every single time you go back to that, you laugh your ass off about the thing that you would have laughed your ass off at the time. Each and every time you revisit it, so it's very real.
Just because you're laughing doesn't mean you're having fun, or that it's... or that
in that exact
or something
moment,
like that.
In that exact moment, though your definition you may not assign properly, in that exact moment, chemically, you have exhibited the thing that is consistent with whatever fun is.
If this is the case, how come there's this whole meme, and we know that memes are kind of based off reality as well, right? Why is this whole meme that's like the funny kid once he goes back home, and it's like a picture of like a fucking depressed guy?
Well, because it's a projection thing where you try to actively mine things that are funny for yourself because your life is shit. So it's like you are literally doing the thing that I stated, which is chemically having fun, which is all that fun actually is, and are doing this so you don't kill yourself. That's basically the point. That is also why people with like extremes, experiences in life have like this method by which they cope, and this exact method is like, making fun of their fucked up situation. You're like, oh hey, bad disaster happens, let's make a joke out of this somehow because it's funny, right? Like that's the situation itself is not funny, but like that's coping though. And in your case, you were laughing about things that you did because they were actually hilarious at the time, not because you're trying to cope with something that it was, which was fucked up, because it wasn't fucked up. So not only did you categorically have fun, but you chemically had it too. There's a difference between doing something that's categorically fun and something that's just chemically fun for you to do so you can cope with whatever the thing is that is categorically not fun.
Also, I don't think a temporary experience makes it not real. I mean, like, if you zoom in enough, we're all responding to inputs through a series of electrical impulses and chemical reactions. Like, nothing's real, right? What makes it real is your interpretation of the experience. Have fun.
Precisely.
I don't agree with you guys' take.
It's literally what your brain physically is like, and if you don't agree with that, you're literally in denial. I'm sorry. You can map how the neurons fire, and it's like ape brain says fun, and this is like consistent with everyone else's chemical response to whatever fun is, and it's like, okay, there you go. I put it next to your brain, and it's the identical map. But that's exactly how. But that's how time works. All you have is a moment. All you have is the moment, and you're trapped within it. And what's left is the memory.
There's a difference between something that's like an hour long, right? So like if I see fun as like you're having a full hour of quote unquote fun, whereas you have like a few seconds of like laughing. I don't. You're not having. It's not fun. Right, it's a momentary
that is fun.
Blip.
It just depends on how long that fun is.
Blip.
Adrian, I think...
Yeah, momentary blips are momentary blips, but it's real. Blips.
Yeah, I think it's possible Outa is probably pulling off a prank just to extend it to precisely 69 minutes.
No, I'm not. I am genuinely, like, I believe this 100%.
Oh, Blaze is here.
Yeah, I invited him via the space. The spaces thing that should actually work because I can't see him because the thing is busted. Okay, here, let nobody up other than Blaze and whoever else may be interesting to us. Like, I want to keep this an extremely clean experience, not like last time where it's like, oh hey, we have this discussion, then we're gonna bring up these like unmentionable entities and be like, oh hey, what's the most What's the most insane thing that you can say that is absolutely not relevant to the conversation and just like dump that in front of us? So we want to like minimize that as much as possible.
How nutty? How late did you guys go last night in Eastern time?
Not sure actually. It wasn't that
a
long.
lot longer after you left. Maybe like
What
half
the
an hour.
fuck? There's an actual 69 minutes account now.
Yeah, I know. That's what happens when like there's a specific thing that happens. Like
Right.
Apparently, there's also a YouTube show. There may be IP issues.
Yeah, I mean, you could just like do the conversation, which is what I already do, and like have that be blended as whatever the 69 minutes is, but like you can actually have that be something different. I think within the mentioned context, like say for instance you have like this particular name that's added to it, and I think it wouldn't be that difficult for X to pull off. So yeah,
It's a cool idea.
By the way, Adrian.
yeah, I know, I read it.
Yeah. What do you
Yeah,
think?
because I feel as though that like devalues the thing a little bit as well, so we'd have to like get that to like that one's good for like private, but it's not good for like public. Those types of things.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I know. Like, but
Right.
get the interpretation. I'm most likely also going to make some steak here as well. Got some really nice pieces of steak. I got sirloin that's like extra thick. It's like, very, very good. So I'm going to like fry that off in my pan. I don't have like one of those, cast iron pans here. I will have to do it in like a non-stick one, which is not exactly optimal, but it works. You just can't scratch it with anything. Otherwise, whatever's inside of the pan is going to be inside you, and that's usually something that's consistent with forever chemicals, which are a problem for you. So,
Yes.
so overheating is probably not good, and so like don't bring it to the point where it's actually like melting. And I think my laundry just got done. Let me go get that. I like multitasking while I do spaces. I think it's like one of the greatest things to do. Like people always ask me, how exactly is it possible that you like do spaces? Because I use it to like defrag my brain. And like while I'm defragging my brain, I'm also like multitasking because I have to kind of output something. Because it keeps me, I think, kind of locked in, That makes things easier for me. And I can just multitask. And I'm very good at using like one of my hands for something and like doing something else with the other hand. So it's like I can actually hold the phone, have the conversation, and get something else done, like cooking. So I'm very good. I'm very good with allocating how my hands are supposed to do things physically.
Yeah, with as much time as we spend in spaces, you have to multitask.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, it's the same with everybody else, I think. There's people that listen to this as if it was radio. And by all intents and purposes, it is almost like radio in a sense. Whereas, I think it's mostly like a podcast, but it's like if you took whatever was really good about podcasts and you unified it with whatever radio was, but then at the same time, it's more radio than actual podcasts, in my opinion.
So Adrian, let's say if we are planning for the 69 minutes show, is it going to be like a video spaces or audio only?
No, audio only probably.
It will be audio only. Yeah. And if it was video, it'd have to be like an appearance via like a call on X, I believe. But we'll see how exactly. We'll see. I mean, if it comes through, I think it would be just like pure spaces like that. And organizing space is actually quite easy. It's not as big of a deal as everybody makes it out to be.
So the style, is it going to be like maybe the Tucker Carlson show or something?
That's going to be just like this style, where we have like myself on and a bunch of other people who are like good at understanding what's going on. So there's like a little bit of diversity, I think. Diversity as in of opinions and perspectives, because like you can have one person such as myself who like has a specific way of seeing things, but then you can have somebody else who's kind of in tune with your principles, seeing things a little bit differently, and they be able to ask questions that you yourself wouldn't initially think of, It's almost like you are sending an engineer to somebody's place. It's like, okay, here I have a product that I'm making, and you send the engineer to that guy's place where the product is being made, and it's like extremely messy, but the engineer looks at it and says, wow, this thing is the coolest thing I've ever seen. But if you take somebody else there who's not familiar with engineering, they will look at it and just see the mess, right? Because they don't understand the process. So you need multiple perspectives to kind of nail everything down and make it better. So yeah, I think it's like that. And those spaces would also be recorded, so we'd have to be very, intentional with whom we platform as well. Mainly, it would just be the people, that we already have on right here. Like I think Preston, Blythe, and Lawyer Auda, Suraj, like these characters here are very trustworthy. They don't say anything unhinged. By the way, I'm gonna let Elliot up. Don't say anything unhinged either.
What do you mean? I say shit that's unhinged all the time.
That depends. It's like you know when to not do things like that. You know what I'm saying? Like remember when we had like this whole meltdown situation that we dealt with the Laura Loomer shit, where like they were spreading lies because they were actively coping with the fact that they basically doxed someone on accident, quote unquote. But I mean, hey, honest mistake could have happened. But then like complaining about censorship, even though they get more impressions than like most accounts their size, it's like wait, what? But sure, And that was like a thing that happened for quite a while and then spread around. And then, I think we handled that quite well because we were essentially doing something on Christmas that nobody else was willing to do. And like we were doing it independently. So like we're representing nobody other than the truth as a concept, which was pretty cool. And I think I'd like to continue doing that. Absolutely. Hang on, I'm just gonna like put my thing outside. There we go. Yeah.
Putting your thing up, item 69 minutes.
Question is a huge one. What is this 69 minutes thing exactly? Like, what do you cover in that?
I don't know, whoever's like the guest, This is like, we have no actual special guests. We have like the crew, I think, to a certain extent. This is like the crew. You have like two lawyers, actually, sorry, one who is a solicitor, the other guy who's actually a lawyer. You got the computer kid, which is Elliot. You got Auda, who's like the generalist. You got Suraj, who's like also kind of a computer kid. So like these two are together. You got the timekeeper, that's Blythe, who like does clips. So that's kind of a thing. Actually, I'll let you on as well. Don't let anybody else up. Unless, of course, Okay. Yeah. Then Elliot's here. Elliot, have you been thinking in circles recently?
No, I've been thinking in suitcases because I need to pack it.
Oh yeah. When are you leaving?
Oh yeah, that's right. You're going places, right? Not sure if you want to tell us, but yeah, you are going places. Literally, physically going places, which is pretty cool.
Literally intercontinental. Yep.
Fantastic.
That's awesome.
Yeah, for those who don't know, I was at a hacker house in San Francisco for about a month called The Residency, and stayed there and met some really, really crack people, really made some long-term relationships there. Like, it's a really good place to hang out and build stuff. And then some Finnish people came over during a party, and I guess I hit it off with them, and they wanted me to come over and stay at their hacker house called FRA. It's the top hacker house in Finland, and I'll be staying there for 2 months. So that's where we're leaving tomorrow at noon.
That's awesome, man. Real world experience. That's great stuff.
Basically going to a bunch of hacker houses, which is pretty decent.
Pretty cool, yeah.
We'll be doing time lapses intercontinental, guys. Let's get it.
Intercontinental time lapses. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Yeah.
By the way, Polly's requesting. I don't know if you want me to bring him up or not, but
depends on like.
I
was like sending a message about like what various things that we don't want to discuss, but like I think we'll stick with the current crew for now. Just like doing, yeah.
I would have brought him up. I didn't.
Oh,
all right.
I had already brought him up.
It's fine.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're keeping it as vanilla as possible, and don't say anything that's actually stupid. Like you should be intelligent, and you should have like the proper cognitive security to understand like what is stupid, objectively stupid, and what is objectively intelligent to say or not say. Like because there are certain things that is called decorum. Like there's a certain thing called decorum, and one should exhibit that with us. And I think even going forward, independent from like whether or not this happens or if it doesn't, I think we should just like do that regardless, because I feel like having higher quality is good, because I noticed one thing, like, I mean, I've taken some time off of Spaces for a little bit because I've been exceedingly busy, and one thing that I've noticed was it is extremely difficult to get actual signal across most of the time because there's just way too much noise that is permitted. So like henceforth I just kind of want to destroy the noise entirely, and when there is nothing else but noise, just to kind of like instantly cut it off, right? Because you cannot have that continue and it's a waste of actual time. And for me, it's not so much a waste of time because like I do things just multitasking, but it does become one when you consider that you have like actual mental cost, the cognitive cost, effectively, because the energy that you consume, the thoughts that you have to process, the things that you need to deal with, these have to be all purposeful, because otherwise you're just going to have an issue. And an issue is efficiency, right? There's a whole bunch of other things actually as well. Did anybody ever think about the quality of energy? It's another thing. What do we think about fusion? I've been thinking about fusion recently. It's a very interesting thing.
Well, let's take a step back there. Quality of energy. Can we define this term?
Quality of energy. It's like think about different sources of power. You could say, hey, what is the quality of energy when it comes to like using coal, for instance, right? It's okay, here, you have like these upsides and you have these downsides, but you have okay, so you have a lot of downsides with coal, but you have much more upsides with something like nuclear energy, right? One of which being that it's denser. It doesn't destroy the environment as much if you want to acquire it, because of its density, of course. Waste is another interesting aspect of that. And besides, like, okay, here's the thing about coal, by the way, because the issue with coal is, if you were to use it, and you actually are firing it, it's like the radiation, so it's like the pollutants that come out are actually like, there's radiation there as well, so that basically pollutes the area. So it actually makes more sense having a nuclear power plant than to have coal, because coal is like extremely counterintuitive. I mean, look at what's happening in Germany, where they are mining brown coal. It's the plant stuff, not like yeah.
They're doing bituminous coal instead of whatever the one that begins with an A. So it's dirty smell and it's less efficient.
Here's another way to think about this. Another way to think about this is from an audio engineer's perspective, right? So an audio engineer can get 120 volt in the US easily, 240 overseas, fine. But it's not clean because it's coming from a coal power plant, or it's coming from whatever the line rate is, and typically they're running it through a power filter. So the input power they want is a very smooth, clean sine wave. So it's being put through capacitors and resistors before it's sent to the audio gear, and you're getting clean signal. So power comes as a signal, and it needs to be taken care of before it arrives. Coming straight off a generator, it's very erratic, very jumpy. If you were to look at the waveform that comes out of the typical power plant, it's disgustingly bad. The stuff that shows up at your house is terrible. And it's the reason things like power filters exist.
Yeah, but mainly we're talking about something that's a bit more large scale than like the fine stuff, which is a little bit too technical, I think, even, because I was trying to like define what Elliot was asking. So, okay, what exactly is high quality energy versus low quality energy? Say nuclear fusion compared to something like coal is much more high quality. Or even worse, you can go down the ladder of other sources of energy, where it's like the very bottom is going to be human power, where it's like, imagine if a bunch of humans are like trying to spin a wheel, and that is how you get power. Well, of course, it's going to be exceedingly inefficient and extremely stupid, because a human is worth something much more than just a machine. It's like their brain, you can use them for amazing things. That's why we have these incredible tools all around us, where we can actually put humans to amazing use, so they can use what they are, which is amazing, for something that's actually constructive for civilization, as opposed to like basically just becoming muscle machines, right? So it's like, that is insanely stupid. It would be insanely stupid to use humans. Just like wind energy, it's the same principle, right? You have a thing that's extremely counterintuitive. So you like go up the ladder of whatever the quality of energy would be. And that also is like with energy density, it's the same thing. That is also a factor that one needs to consider. So like, for instance, you'd have something else like oil. Oil, I think, would be even better than coal. So it's like a little bit higher than that. And so you can kind of put this on a ladder, right? With energy is better. I think like the top would be fusion, and like right below that would be nuclear. Below nuclear would be something like solar power, but like almost on the same level of solar power would be hydropower, because it's extremely scalable. You'd have like then geothermal, that I think is below that as well, and it kind of like is like this. Because the thing with geothermals, it's actually pretty good, but the problem with geothermal is it requires you to be in an area where there's like actually active there's activity, right? There's like actual volcanic activity, which means means that the geology of that place could change at any moment, right? Maybe that's not the case for certain places, at which point, like there, you could actually use geothermal energy, and geothermal energy is a really cool thing, right? So I really like that. But there's various other things that one can do as well. I think these are kind of like almost even, where you like look at the geothermal, hydropower, and you look at solar power, right? Because solar power and hydropower could be interlinked, because you could effectively use you could use solar in order to pump up, so water into like a lake, where there's a dam, and use it as a battery, for instance, right? And then you say, okay, we use this as a gigantic physical battery, then we can just like let the water out all at once, and recover it. And that's where hydropower comes in.
What's the status of fusion right now? Like, is anyone close?
It has already been achieved.
Well, I mean, it's like it's been achieved, but has it been achieved? And I know that for example, I think Lockheed or Raytheon or one of those big companies, they're working on small modular fusion reactors, which is different from even the small modular fission reactors. And but nobody, I know they've done it at the National Ignition Facility. They did fusion there. They've been doing fusion with tokamaks for 30 years. But has anybody actually gotten it to the point where, and I know that recently someone had a couple of years ago, they managed to get more energy out than they put in. But that's the question is has anyone, who's closest? Does anyone happen to know? Who's closest to scaling this stuff in a way that you can say, okay, cool, we're going to build a power station and it's going to work. And I think the Europeans are building one too.
I don't know who's closest to it. You're absolutely right that people have achieved more energy out than energy put in. But as far as I'm aware, every single group that has done it has destroyed massive piece of hardware in the process. So in terms of reaction, yes, more energy out than energy in, but not more energy than is required to build all of the parts that were necessary to create that reaction in the first place. So it's almost a function of framing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so they're waiting for their SpaceX moment when they can do that and not wreck their hardware, basically.
Exactly.
Makes sense, yeah. Because my cutoff is at the ignition facility thing. I even posted that, I think, as well, just for people to kind of look at what it looks like. Let me pull that up. I think I have that, actually. There we go. Found it.
In terms of which progress is at, I know the Hydro project is pretty big. They're doing a massive tokamak, from my understanding. And then another company that's really pushing the frontier is Halion Energy. So they're changing the architecture for the fusion reactor itself by shooting plasma rings and then getting them to essentially merge and stay in that spot of very, very high temperature plasma for as long as possible, and then get fusion from that. So we can achieve fusion, but the question is, yes, your hardware and how long can you sustain that reaction for? That's where that's where Q greater than 1 doesn't check out, is how long can you actually sustain it for, and not having to pay for new parts each time you start it up.
It's almost the same problem as the railgun. This kind of reminds me of the railgun problem, where the military wanted to create a railgun, and it just kind of tore apart the railgun each and every time they used it, slowly. Actually, every single time you fire a bullet from a gun, especially a big gun, you're actually damaging the gun just a little bit, right? So the same thing actually happens with the railgun, but with that, in this case, it's actually worse. It damages it even more because of the forces that are acting on the metal, and because the forces that are acting on the metal, which are magnetic, it actually acts the other way. So, yeah.
I mean, you can wreck a normal gun in 10 or 15 magazines if you know what you're doing. You just take a 308, run 200 or 300 rounds through it, and you will ruin the gun if you're doing it in sequential order with 20 round mags. So it depends on how much stress. But yeah, exactly. When you put a bullet down a barrel, it goes down the rifled grooves, and it takes some of those grooves with it every time it goes down. So more energy, more damage.
Exactly. By the way, here's the clip that I was talking about, where it's fusing 0.2 milligrams of deuterium and tritium. 69, ironically enough, to produce 69 megajoules of fusion energy. So it's ironic that is a coincidence We're like, this thing is 69 megajoules of fusion energy.
Adrian, that is not a coincidence. That was calculated and on purpose. That was engineered in. Guaranteed.
That was
Apparently
fantastic.
there
That
was
was
a team-
fantastic.
Yeah.
It was a team of 420 scientists who managed to pull it off. So
Is that actually a real number, or are you just pulling my leg?
no, 420 scientists created the 69 megajoules of energy. I am completely serious and not at all joking.
No way.
That's crazy.
That is insane. Somebody quote post that post if there's intel.
That's an important, piece of knowledge.
Sorry, that was a bad joke. I apologize.
Bruh.
I think another way to frame this for anybody who hasn't quite grasped it yet is in terms of just the concept of business. If you think about the revenue you're bringing in as the energy you're producing and the equipment as kind of cogs, if your cogs exceed the revenue you're bringing in, you've got a failing business. And that's kind of what these fusion reactors are today. They're generating a lot of revenue, but the cogs of producing that revenue are greater. So, you're basically on a burn schedule and you're wondering, how long can I make this last before I run out of money?
By the way, COGS are cost of goods sold.
That's a good analogy, Paul. I like that.
So basically, what we're waiting for is the first Raman profitable nuclear reactor, fusion reactor.
Yeah,
It's essentially an efficiency problem, bottom line. And efficiency not so much in terms of the reaction itself, but efficiency in terms of the reaction plus the materials and the labor and the engineering and everything else that goes into creating a reactor that gets destroyed in the process of doing it. So reaction efficiency is one thing, but reaction efficiency plus the economics of producing that reaction in the first place are something very different.
Yeah, the idea is that material science is like one of your biggest variables there. So it's kind of like the rules on how you can do everything. So if you get, a key like material science breakthrough where I don't know, I'm not a material scientist by any means, but, come up with some clever way to, change the material of your tokamak or the metals itself, the giant magnet that's conducting, whatever it is, that you have a lot of variables at hand